one. That's amazing, man. If I'm honest with you, so yeah, it'd be nice, man. I think I just think we need to get players. What do you think of Berta's approach this summer so far? Obviously, you can't really read much into it, but like, yeah, what do you make of his approach? What was your hope? Like, what are you kind of expecting from him? Because I don't want to exaggerate, but if Arteta was Arsene Wenger, I think Berta needs to be the David Dean. I think, you know, you need to work in tandem. There's obviously going to be pushback from either party, but I do think with Wenger, David Dean kind of saved him from his madness when he was going a bit too crazy with certain things. And I want to see the Cronkies bet on Berta as much as they do with Arteta, with the greatest of respect to Edu, who got some things right and some things wrong. It felt like we'd always lean to Arteta. I want to kind of see them at an equal footing. And I think he's working his magic. I think he's got a lot to do. But yeah, where are you at with Berta so far?
Yeah, I think he's been really good. I mean, from what I heard, it was actually like Arteta was one of the people really pushing for Berta in the first place. So I've
Love to
never
hear
really
that.
bought into the idea that like Arteta is worried about the kind of power almost that Berta would have at the club. And I think the respect that Berta has generally in the game is a lot more significant than the respect probably that Edu had in the game. The approach of going for multiple options at the same time, not caring, like, you know, when we're going for Sesko and Gyokeres and we're negotiating with both of them at the same time, knowing that we're only going to get one. So I don't care if that hurts the feelings of one of you. If you're like, oh, why are they going for two people at the same time? Because we've seen what happened. Like, we've been playing a massive game of chicken or poker or whatever, and Berta hasn't blinked yet. And as much as they tried to hold on and demand more money, and it sounds like eventually that's going to pay off with Gyokeres. We're going to get him on cheaper wages than we would have done. So I like it. And again, the same with Madueke. Okay, we've agreed personal terms. That helps us in negotiations with Chelsea because now he's going to push for a move. I think there's a lot to like, but I probably still won't judge him until the end of the window, because ultimately, when it gets to crunch time in the window, when we need to make sales, and when we ultimately need to bring the players in, until it's all signed, sealed, and delivered, then, you know, you can't fully judge it.
I'm with you with that, especially the pivoting thing, because obviously, God forbid, things could go wrong. Even if you pivot, if you ended up empty-handed, it's the same old things. But again, I'm sure, I'm not naive. You know, it does appear that Edu had one target, sniper kind of tunnel vision. That's who we're getting. If we get him, great. If we don't, we sit on our hands. I'm not naive in that. I'm sure if I worked for Arsenal, worked in the footballing world, there's probably some players they sniffed around for that I would never have known. I don't think Edu would just, or any competent sporting director, is just going to have one kind of target. They might be able to pivot, but it's evidently clear to us that Berta is trying to, you know, pivot and spin many plates. That leads me to ask you another question on Madueke. Like, do you think that like Madueke could quote unquote be a smoke screen? Do you feel we're just trying to tie up some loose ends in case whoever else we're going for is wrong? Or do you genuinely believe like we've gone into the season and hopefully we could get Rodrygo, Eze, we want Madueke, we want either Gyokeres or Sesko? Like, where are you at with that then?
I mean, it could be a smoke screen. I know, like, to be honest, I don't really buy into like just smoke screens in general. Like, how often do we actually see that be a thing? Not often. But people love to think that any signing that they don't want to make, they're like, no, it's fine. It's got to be a smoke screen. No, to be honest, I think the thing with Madueke is that they're looking at a player that, I mean, let's be real. We looked at him previously. We looked at him when he was at PSV. Apparently, we looked at him even last summer when he was at Chelsea.
Yeah.
So there's definitely a long-standing, even pre-Berta, a long-standing interest in him. And I think they're probably looking at a player of his level and thinking, supposedly, what we're hearing is that he's on 50 grand a week and is willing to stay on 50 grand a week if he moved to Arsenal. Fabrizio Romano said that he's willing to take the same salary structure. Now, I don't know if it is 50 grand a week at Chelsea. That's what
his agent needs to do a better job in that regards. If I'm him,
yeah,
like 23 years of age, I want 100 grand.
Exactly, but that's like half of what Reece Nelson's on, supposedly. So over a 5-year period, that's what, like 13 million in wages that you're saving going from Nelson to Madueke and arguably upgrading. So no, I think there's probably legitimate reasons for them trying to get a deal done there. It's just going to come down to the fee at the end of the day. I look at the right wing market. To be honest, it's not like an incredible market at the moment for
all of the front line, man. Left wing, right wing, up front. You're umming and ahhing. There's not evident quality, or if they are evident quality, they're not available.
Yeah,
exactly. Which is annoying, really. But I mean, that's to us common football fans. I don't really have sympathy for our club because we've known. I'm exaggerating a bit, but maybe you've known you've needed backup for Saka. You've known about the left wing. You know you're up front. You've got scouts. You've got analytical data. We've shown that we can outsmart the market before. go and do it in it. What do you make of this on screen? No one else concerned about how Arteta is not trying to get to the bottom of last season's injury crisis. Surely not just a squad size issue. It's not just squad size. Clearly the physios and maybe the players have something to do with that. I know Arteta is going to get the flank for that, but I think it'd be naive if you assume that he's not naturally trying to get to the bottom of that. That's just like any other area of development for our club. But where are you at with that?
Yeah, look, I think it's difficult because there were certain injuries that were like unavoidable, nothing to do with Arteta injuries that definitely held us back. Like Tomiyasu's ongoing injury meant that even before Timber had arrived, Ben White had to play an insane amount of games. Then Timber arrives, does his ACL. That's uncontrollable. So then that leads to Ben White playing through an injury, which probably ended up in him needing a surgery and a longer layoff than he should have had. Tomiyasu that whole time's completely out. And all of that then has a knock-on effect. It's like, if you've only got one of those players that can play at right back, where they could maybe play at right centre back, then Saliba can't get rested, even in like the lesser games. Gabriel can't get as much rest because Calafiori he arrived injured, then picked up 2 or 3 injuries. Maybe and they weren't muscle injuries or to do with overplaying, they're to do with his knees. Maybe the club could have looked at that when they signed him because of the history he had of knee injuries. I think it's difficult. Again, the Erdegaard one means that you've then got less cover in that area. Waneri plays a bit more than he should have done. I think it was tough. I do think it was tough. The Jesus one, to be honest, was the biggest killer. Like Jesus doing his ACL.
His form was just getting there as well.
Exactly.
Like,
exactly. And then it's like, so then Havertz, Martinelli, Trossard basically had to play every game other than if you wanted to play Raheem Sterling. But I can understand Arteta not wanting to play Raheem Sterling at any point. So, no, I think there were a lot of unfortunate ones. Even Mikel Merino turning up and breaking his shoulder or whatever he did on
Gabriel Magalhaes falling on him, flipping.
Yeah, like there are certain things like that where it's like, okay, that's
Can't
just unlucky. But equally, over the last, I would say 3 windows, we probably didn't do enough to improve the depth anyway. So yeah, I think there's definitely some accountability. We don't know the insides of the club in terms of training. And I'm not going to pretend to know because we went through periods before that, 22, 23, even 23, 24, where we had one of the best injury records in the Prem. So what changed, if anything?
And that's where I'm at for personally. In that, you mentioned that in that there's been many years where we've had some injuries, we've had none, and fundamentally, not to be disingenuous to Arsenal, we haven't got over the line. In it, 3 very different seasons, very different contexts. We just haven't got over the line. That's where my frustration comes with, because even when we had relatively injury-free squad, Mikel Arteta come out and said we've got one of the smallest squads. Now, I'm not here to just blame Arteta or blame Edu previously or whatever. You lot all together, you're smart men. If you've come out and said that privately, you've known what's going on publicly. So whether it's the tactics, whether it's depth, whether it's the striker, it's the left wing, my frustration in general comes because none of the things we're talking about throughout the course of this live stream or just in general with Arsenal fans are necessarily anything that's just we stumbled across last season. And at some point, we need to kind of change things. To go to this question on screen, we finally got a striker. So the aim for the season is to win the Prem. Do you agree? We should be aiming to win the Prem anyways. We tried to do that last year. It didn't happen. Fair enough. We didn't expect it in 2022-23, but we tried to do that. We're going to need more than a striker or just attackers to get over the line. But it's a realistic aim to go for the Premier League. Sorry, I hope the champs. Obviously, Liverpool have won it. City, give or take, we're probably 2nd or 3rd in a lot of Arsenal fans' books, but everybody wants to be kind of proven wrong. To go to this, I don't necessarily think Arteta is going to be sacked if he doesn't win the title next season, but where do you stand on that, really? And then just KSC. Where do you stand on KSC as well? Because they've asked that.
Yeah, I mean, KSC, I still think they are happy. I mean, we've seen it, right? So it's, from what I understand, internally, there's like very little pressure on Arteta, and the pressure that is on him is from the fans. And like the only way of reading into that, I mean, there's 2 ways of reading into it. One is that because it's my belief, I genuinely think Arteta is the right guy, and I think he is the guy that will get us there. But there is also an element of like more ruthless owners would have sacked Arteta by now. That's just a fact. Like, so are they happy just being in and around the top 2, 3? Are they happy getting to the latter stages of the Champions League? But if we don't win it, we still made the money. Probably, to be honest, they're businessmen with a lot of sports franchises and clubs. I think it would be silly to sit here and pretend that week in, week out, they're sweating about Arsenal results and desperate for us to lift the trophy.
Didn't
Because they're
Stan
not
say he didn't
fans.
buy Arsenal to win trophies?
Yeah, they're not fans. They're
Which
not.
is crazy.
And that's just that's just something that. But that said, you could get far worse owners. Like that they have offered up.
Also true, to be fair.
They've offered up, more money than some other owners. So
They've
yeah,
broken a transfer record.
Exactly. So it's one of them. I feel like, of course, you could get other owners that would just come in and throw absolutely everything at it and spend and bend the rules as much as they could. But equally, where do you end up? Like, I wonder where Chelsea will end up. But at the end of all of this, maybe are they going to end up comfortably winning titles year after year, which is what seemingly their aim must be, or are they going to end up where they're getting sanctioned, where they've spent huge amounts of money, now they've got a squad that still isn't good enough, and they haven't got money to spend? Like, I don't know. I think it's risk and reward, and I think what KSC are doing is taking a very business-minded, and it's not even just them. I think it's people like Tim Lewis, who we brought in basically after the Pepe deal as a lawyer to be like, we aren't going to do anything stupid again.
You got to remember, Berta has a financial background as well.
Yeah,
as well
exactly.
As an impressive, football CV.
Exactly, and maybe sometimes it takes the risks to get over the line, and that is what you need to do. So yeah, I don't know. For me, I would never say I support KSC, because who are they ultimately? They're not. They're the owners. They're not the
football club.
They're not
fans.
The team. They have no impact on what actually happens on the field. And then with Arteta, yeah, look, for me, I've always stuck by him, and I do genuinely think that what he's gotten out of our squads until last season, and even then the injuries, obviously, who you put that on is up to you. But up until that point, we never had a better squad than Man City in the 2 years that we competed with them. So I think he got an awful lot out of it. But now you look at it and you go, okay, well, if we do get the striker and if we do get Rodrygo, that's a squad that should get over the line.
And that's the unfortunate. Go on.
No, and that will be the aim. I don't think anyone that goes into next season, even if we don't sign Rodrygo, anyone that goes into next season is like, we don't need to win the Prem. I think we're at the point now where, like we said, you don't get this period for that long, and you've got to make the most of it.
I always use the example. It's like, let's just say I had no job, I had no money. Long story short, I've now got a job, I've now got money, I've now got savings. I'm starting to think about going on holiday. I've obviously saved up for the holiday, booked the holiday, got the, put my stuff in my suitcase, got to the airport, checked in, on the plane, watching a movie. At some point, you want to land in a destination, innit? Whether that's Jamaica, Asia, wherever Cornwall, wherever people want to go. At some point, you want to get there. That's how I feel about the journey. Like, I appreciate everything Arteta has done to get us into these conversations. He's ultimately dying by resetting our standards, but now it's about getting over the line. There's so many things I like about you. I think you've shown big bollocks really to take the job and all of those things. You've got us to a certain standard. I think there's certain things that you've messed up on your own back, and I do think, as much as I'm quite critical on the Cronkies, at the end of the day, they've spent money, and at the end of the day, you signed a new deal for 15 million a year, so you believe you can do what needs to get done. I think you're a good manager. I need you to prove you're a winning manager. And every year you don't do that, unfortunately, I think for many balanced Arsenal fans, not the screaming and shouting and the toxic positivity, that's a very valid question that's going to get bigger and bigger. And at some point, we're going to have to try something different. This is just the nature of the business. We've seen different players, people above board. The owners are, unfortunately, or fortunately for some, not going anywhere. To be fair, I'm not backing the Cronkies, but since they've taken full ownership, they have backed the club in terms of they've given Arteta a lot to spend. We bought a number 6 in Rice, allowing him to play as an 8. There's been all of that. And they even gave the man a job off the back of essentially just being part of Arteta's coaching, Pep Guardiola's coaching staff. So we're just going to have to get over the line and find a way, man. So it is what it is, man. Before I let you get out of it, I want to run through some things quickly. I know vaguely, very vaguely, we spoke about Gyokeres. Where did you sit? Did you want Sesko or Gyokeres? Where are you at with the Gyokeres thing? Is there any concerns? Are you bullish about it? Where are you at with him?
Yeah, so like for 18 months, I wanted Gyokeres, and then into this summer, honestly, I was at a point where I kept saying, I'm really, as long as we get one of them, I'm not going to complain.
I think we all were like that now.
People going like crazy on, it has to be Sesko, otherwise the project's over. Or it has to be Gyokeres, otherwise the project's over. I mean, the project's never going to be over because Havertz is good enough to get us in contention anyway. But for me, it was always, neither of them are perfect, right? there are flaws to both of them. With Sesko, it was, I think he has a higher ceiling, but there's no guarantees that you hit that
But
ceiling.
what are you doing right now, kind of thing?
Exactly. With Gyokeres, it's okay. Can he do it in the Premier League? The standard of defending will be higher. But for me, that's not really even been the issue with him. I've always thought the hunger that he has, the desire he has, and the fact that if he gets the ball at his feet inside the box, more often than not, it ends up in the back of the net.
Left his girlfriend and gave up 2 million to
Oh, he's
potentially
given
join
it,
us.
yeah. Oh,
Imagine what
exactly
he'll
the
do to score.
mentality of him. Exactly. The mentality of him is perfect. So yeah, I'm buzzing that it sounds like it's going to be him. I think the people that are trying to find every single reason to say that it's not going to work, the guy's got 97 goals in 102 games. I don't care how he scored them. I don't care if none of them were with his head. I don't care who the opposition were.
Preach.
Like, yeah. So yeah, I'm happy, and I think he's going to bang.
I think it's going to bang. And you know what? My conservative one is, can you get me 15 goals? Of course, I want 20 plus. I don't want Saka to shoulder the burden anymore. Like, we need to complete that 3-man puzzle. Assuming this Gyokeres thing gets over the line, that's now 2 with Saka. You get someone on the left-hand side, whether that's an Eze, whether that's a Rodrygo. We're going somewhere to doing that. Of course, there's concerns. Like you said, can he do it from Portugal into the Prem? Obviously, the Championship is the Championship, respectfully to it. But if you do it in the Championship, there has to be a correlation with your ability to do it in the Prem. He can't be under any illusions. You know you're going to be in a physical battle, etc. I'm not placing the burden on just Gyokeres. Like, Gyokeres can't do it alone. There's going to be times where he's isolated. I think I've seen enough in terms of his general play, the way he's able to snatch chances. Like, for me, obviously, you mentioned it there, that my man's got like 50-odd goals. Of course, there's probably bangers, individual quality, couple free kicks there, instinctive finishes. But it's the unglamorous goals, because you look at when we had Aubameyang, you look at Salah, you look at any Haaland, you look at any bagsman in the Premier League. The majority of the goals are nothing to scream and shout about, you know. It's just a quick little bit of space, bang. That's what we need to do. We've got 14 draws. Now, the 14 draws can't just be because of our inability to put the ball in the back of the net. There's other things. But had we have just, if those 14 draws were just because we didn't score enough, and we win 7 of those because of Gyokeres or additional support on the left-hand side, and we get 7 more wins, however much points that is, where does that leave us? I'm not sure. Again, I keep mentioning the second leg against PSG. First 20 minutes, we had some half chances. If Gyokeres bags, it's a different kind of game. That's what we kind of need. And for me, it's the mentality. I think when it's all said and done, and I still think Sesko's going to be great, but I think the most important thing is the mentality. He looks like he will sell his own mum to score goals. There's nothing the man won't do. He wants this to happen. So make it happen, innit? It's as simple as that, really and truly. So yeah, it seems like it's progressing, Rory. Obviously, Sesko, we put a lot of the groundwork in. It seems like they priced him out of that move. We've gone over Madueke, and it seems like there's no club-to-club talks, but it's getting quite aggressive in that. What do you make of Norgard?
Solid signing, leader. Obviously captained the Brentford team. Like, you know, his age is, I think he's older than some people realised, but I think the style, yeah, but I think the style of play has probably got 2 or 3 years in him, which is all you want. I think he only signed a 3-year deal. So yeah, I just think he's one of those players that will come in and do a job when we need him to. I think, don't get me wrong, I think like Jorginho is a far better footballer, but Jorginho's legs have gone, and there were games where our midfield would just get overrun with Jorginho in it. And if you listen to Brentford fans and the way Brentford talk about him, and the amount of games, actually, I think like their record with him and without him probably speaks volumes about the impact that he has on the team. I just think it's a solid gap that's been filled. And really, people think like if Zubimendi gets injured, then it's going to be Norgard coming in. I actually think if Zubimendi gets injured, you end up just dropping Rice back to the 6 and having Marino or Havertz or even Miles as the 8. So really, it's like, you know, he's the third choice 6, which is a quality player to be your third choice.
And that's where, again, I don't want to keep mentioning Eze's name, but that's another reason as to why I want Eze, because if Rice has to move, Eze comes back in. And that's actually another thing I need Arteta to learn. I know systems are intricate and things like that, but I have always felt when one player is missing, it's like we have to, like, who was missing? Somebody was missing. Partey was missing. And then obviously Rice had to go into the 6. Marino, who's in a good patch up front, went into the 8. It kind of looks a bit disorganized. So if we do have to do that and we've got better players, great. That's why I said earlier, bro, that I think Norgard is going to play a lot more, because of his availability and things like that. It's not glamorous. I understand it. You know, clearly the first choice for the football club was to keep Partey and Zubimendi, and I don't want to get into the off-field stuff with Partey, but at least we pivoted quickly. People, don't get it twisted. The man's 31. I'd imagine maybe not this summer, but within the next year, they're assessing the next kind of Norgard or the next kind of midfield man. So it makes sense. Big up yourself, True Gunners TV. Appreciate the super chat, my boy. I've just seen it. I'm excited to have a goal scorer in Gyokeres. Adaptation makes it intriguing. He'll have to adapt to prove he can do it in this league, but the biggest adaptation will have to come from Arteta to get the best out of him. I agree with that. I'm not saying Gyokeres is Haaland, but I think this is Arteta's Haaland moment in a sense of Haaland's a bit more of a throwback striker in the day and age of false nines and all of that kind of stuff. I think it's Arteta's moment in that you can't change Gyokeres. You're going to have to let Gyokeres be a natural goal scorer, but that's like 50%. The other 50% is for him to do, to a degree, what we've seen Jesus, Kai Havertz and all of them guys do in every aspect of playing up front beyond just scoring. So thank you for your super chat. I don't think you're wrong. Final one then, Zubimendi, man. I'm bullish about him. It feels like we signed him 20 years ago, so I'm not really excited. But I think at this moment in time, this is the only level raiser I see at the club that's signed. I'm very bullish, but what's your thoughts?
Yeah, me too. I think it's a huge sign, and I think one thing that we lacked is people always talk about our transitions, right? We don't get transitions, and we don't have the speed on the transition. I think a lot more often than people realize, we get the opportunity to move in transition, but we're too slow to move the ball forwards. And he is a player that he's not physically quick, but mentally, he knows exactly what he's doing with the ball before it's got to his feet. He's so two-footed, he can go either way. And so I think you feed it into him and you're gone. Like left, right, into Victor Gyokeres. Yeah, I think he's going to be a massive improvement. And like even with the promo video, they're telling you what it is that he's going to do. He is going to dictate the rhythm of the game, the speed of the game. So yeah, I'm well excited for it.
He's a midfielder that you'll fall in love with, really and truly. Like, I don't want to put too much hype on the guy and look like a clown, but I genuinely haven't been this bullish in the midfielder than I have. I think he's going to work wonders for Declan Rice. I think he's going to allow Odegaard and these kind of players to stay further up. Of course, we're going to have other solutions, because if you're an opposition team and you listen to what I said and it comes true, you're going to make sure you mitigate against Zubimendi. But I just think he's a level raiser, and I feel it's not quite the same as Declan Rice, but everyone knows Declan Rice arrived at this football club, world-class number 6. I wouldn't say he's the greatest 8 in the world, but you're seeing those kind of aspects. And I'm not saying Zubimendi's going to play as an 8, but I think people need to understand this guy's going to contribute in all phases of play for us. And he's like a Jorginho type of midfielder in that obviously he's got the legs. He's way more combative than people give him credit for, but his game is based on intelligence. And if we have chased this guy for years, Arteta has to have known in probably 2017 what he wants to do with this man. And these are the guys we want, man. So I hope it all works out. And I'm happy that he's finally here. Get on with business. My last thing for you, Rory, I don't know if this is trolling or whatever from Julian, but he said, Arsenal news, it's my understanding that I assume Nottingham Forest hold heavy interest in Sambi Lokonga. No talks with the player or players camp yet, but there is interest. What would you say in that?
Yeah, I saw yesterday I can't remember where I saw it, but apparently there's a couple of Premier League teams that might be interested in him, and we value him at 10 million. So
Take him.